Well, let's move into the iron and zinc unit. There's 8 learning objectives for this unit. By the end of this unit, you should be able to describe the factors that affect iron and zinc availability in soils, identify the major iron and zinc forms that are present in soil, and then describe how chelates increase micronutrient availability. We'll talk about chelates, natural chelates, and man-made chelates. Objective number 4, know the forms of iron and zinc taken up by plants. Number 5, know the functions of iron and zinc in plants and how they interact and why they're necessary for plant growth. Number 6, you should be able to recognize both iron and zinc deficiency symptoms within plants. And then number 7, understand the role of plant adaptations for micronutrient uptake. And it's really interesting portion of this unit in terms of how plants, when they perceive a deficiency, how do they overcome it? Plants are pretty smart, actually. And then objective number 8 is to know the common iron and zinc fertilizers on the market today. Let's talk about micronutrients in general. And, I don't know if I'll focus directly on iron and zinc on this slide, but that's what this unit is about. And so you were introduced to this table earlier, way back in, oh my gosh, Unit 1, when we were talking about primary and secondary macronutrients as well as micronutrients. And this list in front of you shows you the list of necessary micronutrients for plant growth. And the average concentrations within plants are relatively low. And for example, for iron or zinc, the average concentrations in our plants runs about 100 or 20 parts per million respectively. And those values are really, really low. If you remember, we talked about the concentration of, for example, carbon in plants, and carbon in plants runs about 45%. And if you were to convert that to a part per million basis, that would be 450,000 parts per million. So it's easier for us to express most of the macronutrients in plants, if not all of them in plants, on a percentage basis, but it would be pretty much useless to express the concentrations of micronutrients within plants on a percentage basis. And thus we express them on a part per million basis. It's important to note that although these concentrations of micronutrients in plants are needed in relatively small quantities, they can be simply just as limiting to plant growth as the macronutrients if they're limiting within the soil. And I can tell you that sometimes, yes, we see micronutrient deficiencies in soils. And in Ohio soils, we typically don't see these very often, but we may see some, for example, manganese. But we'll talk about these regardless. And this unit focuses primarily on iron and zinc.